Good day, everyone. I'm Gerald C. Carillo, and what is left to me to discuss is radicalism and identity fusion theory. On the first slide is the what is radicalism and identity fusion theory. And the first thing I will explain is what is radicalism theory. So, what is radicalism? Radical territories tend to view criminal as an instrument by which the powerful and affluent course the poor into patterns of behavior that preserve status quo. One such a view, so-called peacemaking theory, it's based to premises that violence creates violence. In political science, that terms radicalism is a belief that societies need to be changed and that these change are only possible through revolutionary means. An example, it's like terrorists who have a something to fight for and achieve, so they form a group and come together. So, what is identity fusion? Identity fusion is a psychological construction rooted in social psychology and cognitive anthropology. It's a form of alignment with groups in which members experience visceral sense of oneness with the group. So let's start for the main topic. So let's start from radicalism. Radicalism from French radical or classical radicalism was historical political movement within liberalism in the late 18th and early 19th century and prelude to social liberalism and modern progressive. Its identified radical were proponents of democratic reform who later became parliamentary radicals in the United Kingdom. We have two Enlightenment philosophies of liberalism and radicalism. Both share a goal in liberating humanity from traditionalism. However, these liberals considered it sufficient to establish individual rights that would protect the individuals as radicals sought in institutional, society, and economics, and especially cultural educational reform to allow every citizen to exercise those rights into practice. For this reason, radicalism went beyond the demand of liberty by seeking also equality, university, universality as a liberty, equality, fraternity. In other countries, radicalism has a sufficient electoral support on its own or a favorable electoral system or coalition partners to maintain district radical parties such as Switzerland, Germany, Bulgaria, Denmark, Italy, Spain, and the Netherlands, but also Argentina. In some countries, radicalism represents as a small wing within the liberal political family, as was the case within radical wings of England. Sometimes the radical wings of liberals is hardline to doctrinal, and other case is more modest and pragmatic. As in the case of the British radical Whigs, radicalism represents as a small wings among liberal politicians. Sometimes the liberal radical wings are hardline to doctrines, and the other times they are milder, and more practical. So let's proceed for identity fusion. We have theoretical foundation. Identity fusion has theoretical foundation construct builds upon early work by emphasizing aspects of the relationship of people to groups that were deemphasized within the social identity perspectives. In other words, social identity theory and self-categorized theory. Like social identity theory, identity fusion theory rests of the distinction between the personal and social identities. However, the social identity approach assumes that there is a hydraulic relationship between personal and social identities. The theory of social identity also suggests that group members of only connected to each other through their collective loyalty. In theory, personal relationship between groups. Members do not reinforce group identity. In contrast, integrated in individuals feel deep connection to other groups members as individuals as well as to the large group as a whole. This can be seen in the fusion recognition dimension. For example, the verbal measure of identity fusion taps a feeling of equal strength between the individual and the group. Example, I'm strong because of my group. I will do more for my group than for the others group member will do, as well as feeling of unity in the group. In this part, identity fusion theory have form of the four principles. We have the four principles. The characteristic of identity fusion theory has been summarized in the form of four principles. We have agent personal self principle, principle of unity of identity, relational ties principle, irrevocability principle. Agent personal self principle when individuals within an integrated identity becomes strongly connected and alignment with the group. They are assumed to maintain an active and agent of personal self even its social self inactive. Consistent with this idea, activating the personal self by increasing psy- psychological arousal or encourage people to think about how they would react in they were personal trait increasing endorsement of intense pro group. Conversely, the view of social identity assumes that personal and social self are hydraulically related to each other. Consequently, personal self-activation should reduce the endorsement of pro-group behavior. However, this was not case for strongly integrated individuals who actually show the exact opposite effect. Next, we have principle of unity of identity. The fact that personal and social self can be activated independently increasing the likelihood that they can come together to motivate pro-group behavior. Consistent with this possibility, studies have shown that activating either the personal self or the social self strength that willingness of people who are strictly collective to act in the group way. For example, activating activating personal self by including participant from the group based on their personal preference or activating the social self by removing participant based on their membership of the group as result in strengthening endorsement of pro-group action from the strong but not weak joint individuals. Strongly agreed that individuals will strive to be ac- accepted again after os- ostracization into collective. Unlike the theory of social identity, which assume that the personal self does not does not play a role in pro-group behavior, and integration theory believes that pro-group behavior are motivation of both the personal and social self, and the two types of self-knowledge can sometimes work together. Next, we have relational ties principle. The fusion approach assumes that strongly fusion person care not only about their collective ties in the group as abstract entities, but also about their relationship real or imagined, with other groups members. In fact, the people who are tightly grouped feel like kinship bound with other groups member, even people they may or may not have contract with. Many studies have gained empirical support from the principle of relational ties, using some interpersonal variation of the classical dilemma, dilemma, individuals tightly integrated into their country, endorse rescuing countrymen by jumping in front of fast trolley until their death. Moreover, the combined per participant even endorsed to put aside compared who was ready to jump and instant jump on their own until their death, so that the group called ultimate benefit. Apparently, high integrated people are so strongly allied with their fellow groups member that they themselves die than a fellow group members. On other hand, the social identity approach assumes that when social identity is solid, individual view their fellow group member as interchangeable. Example of the group. They evaluate other groups member of the group based on their collectivity relationship towards the group. And the last one, irrevocability principle. The fusion strategy assumes that once formed, the fusion will remain stable over the time. This stability persists even the variety of situation. The unity theory of identity suggests that is due to the strong emotion beliefs and intra-relationship experienced by people who are tight combined. That is, although the overall integration of group of people may shift of response to strong situational force, and the ranking sequence of individuals within the group remains stable. The researcher tests the ones combined, always combined hypothesis by comparing the temporal stability of fusion within country score for individuals who were highly combined with individuals with moderate or poorly combined individual. The coefficient of stable for participants who were highly combined were significantly higher than the coefficient associated within weak or moderately combined participants. Even when orthotrax cited strong integrated individual will go to serious length of to reaffirm their stability in the group. So this the last part. Consequences. We have endorsement of extreme pro-group behaviors and engagement in personality constantly and pro-group behavior. Because of the experimental study of actual extreme pro-group activities raises large ethical red flags. Researchers are more focused on endorsement of extreme pro-groups activities. Some studies have shown that fusion is a strong predictor of readiness to fight and die behalf of a group. Other researchers examined the response to trolley dilemma variation adapted from the group in scenarios that mix the desire to defend oneself against self-sacrifice from other. People who are strictly integrated people are increasingly willing to endorse the sacrifice of their lives for fellow group member, but not for member outside. And last, engagement in personally constantly pro groups behavior. Research has showed that fusion can also be a stronger predictor from group-directed helping habits. In some study, individuals donate money to the groups. In other, they provide social and emotional support to fellow groups members. Other research has also suggests that people who are tightly integrated individuals are increasingly willing to work out way to protect the group and maintain its integrity. In addition to predicting the endorsement of extreme pro-group behavior, research suggests that fusion is predictor of different person constantly pro-group behavior in the real world. And this is my report and video presentation. I hope you learned something and leave a quotation. People like Gian Bird. We can fly alone.